evening, KDL friends. Welcome to our fourth and final episode of Cooking with Mandy. Tonight, we're going to learn how to make risotto. So give me a second and I will add Mandy to our show.
Hello, KDL friends. I am Mandy Thompson, and today I'm going to show you how I make risotto. I'm here in my home kitchen. As you can see, we have kind of a little bit of a squished counter space, but I think you can see everything that I'm going to do today. Also, as a little disclaimer, my screen that I can see is over here, but my camera is over here, so I'll be looking back and forth. Hopefully I can focus on just the camera. I also wanted to mention real quickly, if you watched my video last week, I made pupusa, and there was a spelling error, and the spelling error that was sent over was absolutely my fault. So I just wanted to make sure that anybody watching and those who caught it didn't blame anybody at the KDL. It was me in my rush to get things done and sent over. I just overlooked it. So yes, I apologize, and thank you to the patron that noticed and let us know about it. So yes, we're all human and make mistakes, right? Thanks for being kind. All right, so risotto, it's a classic Italian dish. It has a common misconception of maybe being very, very time consuming or a little bit difficult to do, but I'll show you today that it's not quite as bad as it may seem. I've got my little portable burner here, which I'm not 100% familiar with. I'm familiar with it, but it acts differently than my gas burner on my stove, so I may fidget with it a little bit. Anyways, yes, so let's get started on the risotto. It does take a little bit of time, not hours or anything, but I'm going to try to talk as I cook, so I don't just sit here and stare at the camera for long periods of time. So we're going to start with a couple of tablespoons of a pretty neutral tasting oil. This is a very light tasting olive oil that I use when I don't really need that extra olive oily flavor coming through. So just a nice light one. You could use a neutral canola oil or vegetable oil. Let that warm up a bit. And risotto is always going to start with aromatics. Now, I'm going to be cooking vegetarian today, so I'm going to go heavy on the aromatics. And the aromatics I'm going to use are onion and garlic. So I've got a chopped up onion here. Not a professional chef, so my knife skills aren't culinary quality, but there we go. So a rough, dice, I guess. Yeah, that's a dice. About a cup's worth right in the pan. We're going to saute that off for just a minute or two, just until it starts to get soft and a little translucent. A little bit later, I'll talk about different ways that we can flavor our risotto or what to serve with it. As I get to those points, we'll talk about it. I think this is a good angle. I think you guys can see. I'll tip the pan up every now and then too, just so you know what things should look like. After this goes for just a minute or two, we're going to add garlic. We're big fans of garlic in this family. Let me grab something real quick. Just in case you're not super up to all the cooking terms, this is a head of garlic. And then inside there are these individual bolts of garlic, okay? Or cloves of garlic, rather, I'm sorry. So if a recipe calls for 3 cloves of garlic, you're gonna open this guy up. This is actually a really small one. They're usually bigger than this. But anyways, you're gonna open that up and you're gonna see all these little cloves, and those are 1 clove of garlic. It usually equals about a teaspoon. They could be bigger or smaller than that, but I always measure in cloves, not in like actual measurements. So those are onion. Yeah, our onions are almost there, so we'll start on the garlic. Now, there is pre-minced garlic in a jar that's packed in oil. It's okay. I'm not a big fan. It's not as aromatic. It's not as strong of a garlicky flavor. Absolutely doesn't offer all of the awesome health benefits that this fresh garlic offers. You could chop this up. You can mince it up. I personally, because we love garlic so much, I like to push it through the garlic press. It makes it almost a paste, and it releases all of the oils. The finer your garlic is in a recipe, the more garlic flavor you're going to have in the dish. So if you left them bigger, it would just kind of flavor it a tiny bit. And those that don't care for garlic, they could maybe pick it out. But the smaller you go, the more you crush it up, the more you release those oils. So I did 3 cloves. It's up to you. You could do more, you could do less, you could do 0. You get to decide what you want. All right. Let that go for just a minute. You don't want it to brown. We're not looking to caramelize it. Definitely don't want to burn it, but you do want to cook it off a little bit. It mellows out the flavor just a tiny bit, brings out the natural sweetness, the sugars that do come from it. All right, I'm gonna pick this up and show you. Let's see if you can see. Okay, a little bit translucent, right? A little bit of color on it. Cool. At this point, we're going to add our rice. So risotto is made with arborio rice. There are this is an Italian short grain rice. There are other kinds of rice that you can use for risotto, but I can't pronounce the names and they're not readily available. So this you can buy in most grocery stores. So it is, gotta wait for my delay. Okay. It's kind of pearly looking. Okay, that's as good as we're gonna get, guys. Short grain. It is high in starch, which helps lend to that creaminess that risotto, like the finished product of risotto, is really creamy. Some rices, here, let's measure this out and I'll talk. So we're gonna do a cup. If you know me, you know that I like recipes that are not super strict. This one is not super strict. That cup doesn't have to be perfect. It could be a little more, be a little less. We're going to put that right in the pan. We did not rinse it, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Stir it up, and we want to try to get all of those little grains of rice coated in oil. And we're going to let it hang out just a couple of seconds so that it can start to toast just a tiny bit. That releases the starches, amps up the flavor. So some rice recipes will call for rinsing the rice. So if you're making like white rice for some Asian dish that you're making, or sushi rice, or Spanish rice, or Mexican rice, you'll rinse it first. And that's removing the starch from the outside of the grain of rice. And that is so that all of your grains do not stick together in a big clump when you cook them. So if you just chuck white rice in a pot of water and you cook it down, and then when you go to serve it, it's just like mashed potatoes kind of, it's because you didn't rinse that starch off. We don't want to rinse the starch off with risotto. I'm going to turn it up because we want it to make it creamy. It doesn't really stick together in that clumpiness that I was describing a moment ago, but that's partly to do with this like oil coating it. It's not sizzling very much. Electric burners, I don't really get them that much. Turn it up some more. Okay, while that sizzles for a moment, the next step would be to start with the liquids. Traditionally, you would add some wine. I'm going to use the wine today, but you don't have to do the wine. You could use just more stock or broth instead. The wine is going to give it a little bit more of a layer of a flavor, a more depth of flavor, more umami, if you will. So if you can use the wine, if the wine does not affect you, then use it. If you can, yes. Okay, so you want a dry white wine. I'm just using a Chardonnay. again, readily available. It does not have to be super duper expensive, but you don't want it to be bottom of the shelf because you're still going to taste it. So an easy one to get in our area. I just like to grab one of these. There's also the little Boda boxes. I personally am not a white wine drinker, so I didn't want to get a whole bottle and waste it. So this, I think, was like $4. Okay, dry white wine. I can hear it sizzling now. It's working. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in. And that was about a half a cup if you do want to go the wine route. And we're going to stir that a bit. We want to cook off the alcohol. So while stuff like wine or some recipes will call for bourbon or brandy or cognac, you do want the flavor that it offers, but you don't want that alcohol burn. So you let it cook for a few moments and it burns off the alcohol. The high temperatures burn off the alcohol. And at the same time, we're starting to open up those grains of rice to absorb the liquids in. So one of the things about risotto, I think that shies people away from it is they think that they need to stand over the stove for an hour constantly stirring. Number one, you don't want to constantly stir. You can multitask. But also, from beginning to end, it should really only take maybe 20-ish minutes. So as soon as I see and I hear that sizzle, I just give it another little turn. And we're looking for most of that liquid to absorb before we go on to the next step. The next step is going to be where we're adding our actual liquid, our broth. Today I'm using vegetable broth. You could use beef broth, chicken broth, seafood stock, depending on the flavor you're going for. It really doesn't matter. You can use homemade, you can use store-bought. I really like the Better Than. They come in a jar. It's a concentrate, like a paste. And you just add it to water on the stove and it just turns into a broth. I think it has a really great flavor. Really high in sodium, but it's got a great flavor. So I already have some. Oh no, I have it over here. I moved it. So you do want to start, that's hot. You do want to start with already hot or warm broth. So I did bring it up to a boil a few moments ago. I kicked it down, just kept it warm. Okay, so we have almost all of the liquid, all of our wine has it absorbed. So now we will start like one ladle at a time. So for 1 cup of rice, you're probably going to use about 4 to 5 cups of liquid. And it's going to vary. So I always cook a little bit, or I always prepare a little bit more. But as you're adding it, just 1 ladle at a time. I will show you when we get to the point where it's not going to absorb any more liquid and it's just going to turn into soup, which is what we don't want. And you also don't want it to be on a full boil. A hard simmer, maybe. But if we did a full boil, you're gonna wind up with more of a soupy, gloppy mess, and the inside of the rice is probably not going to be totally cooked. So this is where the slow-ish process comes from. Let it be. Sometimes I have to tell myself, let it be. I want to keep messing with it. All right, let's bubble in a little bit. You can still see everything all right. The sun's starting to go down, so the lighting's a little bit darker today. All right. Okay, this. All right, and it's kind of hard to tell. There's not a whole lot of liquid. It's wet, but there's not a whole lot of liquid. So now it's time to add another ladle full. And then we're going to talk about another aromatic, a spice that is used a lot in risotto. Let that go a minute. So this spice is called saffron. And this is what saffron looks like. These little, that's a tough one to see. Little tiny threads. Oh, you definitely can't see it against my black shirt, but you can see it in the palm of my hand. So these little tiny threads. Saffron is per pound the most expensive spice. It can come in at about $5,000 per pound. Clearly nobody owns a pound. This is a very, very small amount. I don't know. I'm bad with measurements, bad with weights, but this is, I don't know, maybe a quarter of an ounce. Not even that much. It's so much less than that, you guys. But let me show you why it is so expensive. So saffron comes from a flower. It's called a crocus. This is not a crocus. This is a tulip, but I'm going to give you a little lesson here. Hold on. We got to stir. Good. Soaking it up slowly but surely. Okay. So let's pretend this is the crocus, and inside are these, it's yellow on yellow, so it's still hard to see. Maybe if I pull it back like this. Okay, these little guys here, the stigma. So inside of the saffron crocus, there are only 3 of these stigma. Okay, and they have to be plucked by hand. There's no machine that does this. These are all harvested by hand. So 1, 2, 3, right? And then it gets laid out and dried out. So this, just this amount right here, I couldn't even guess. This is probably 2 dozen flowers or more just for this amount right here. And like I said, all by hand. So that's a lot of work. Hence the expensiveness. So the taste of saffron, it's if you use it sparingly, it's a little bit floral, a little bit citrusy, a little bit earthy. Just gives that other layer, layer of flavor that just makes a dish that much more special. It also, once it soaks in some water, it lends this really beautiful yellow color, goldenish yellow color. You can totally skip to saffron, and depending on what else you're putting in this or with it, I would skip it all together, which I'll talk about in a few moments as well. But what I'm pairing it with, this is going to pair beautifully. So really, this is the point where I'm going to add it. So we did the wine, we did 1 ladle, we did a second ladle. It's getting close to time for another ladle. This is when I'm going to put the saffron in. It needs time to seep into the liquid. It needs time to really get into the rice. So we don't want to add it too late, or it's just going to be these little threads just floating around in there. So for this batch, we're just going to use a pinch. And I'm going to say my pinch, this is my pinch. That's about how much I'm going to use. That's probably 4 flowers worth. So thank you, Saffron Harvester, for doing that for us. I mutilated my beautiful tulip to show you. My friend brought these to me yesterday. Okay, saffron's in. Oh yeah, the middle was getting dry, so it was definitely ready for another drink. Awesome. So if you were using beef stock, I would not use the saffron. If you were going to put mushrooms in this, or butternut squash, or something that has a very predominant flavor, I would not use the saffron. There's no reason that you need to waste it. Let me go back to the saffron real quick. I'll tell you my secret. So this is the one that I bought most recently, and I buy them at the Asian market. You pick your favorite one. My favorite one is Kim's on Division. My husband's in the other room. Timmy, where is Kim's Market, Division, and?
Just north of 44th Street.
Just north of 44th Street. So when you have a Sunday afternoon or a couple of hours, go there. It's awesome. You will find so many treasures. The market is amazing. The restaurants are amazing. And you can find some things that are hard to find other places, or maybe are more expensive other places. Yes, this is where I bought it this last go around. And the shelf life is pretty long on those as well. So long as you keep it, away from the sun, keep it in a cool, maybe climate controlled area, you're looking at 2-3 years. I guess it depends on how much risotto you're making. It also goes into paella. I've seen recipes for different breads, different rice dishes from different countries. Okay, I'm gonna kick it up a tiny bit. The more liquid we add, the longer it takes to come to temperature. So yes, if you're using a vegetable stock or a really mild seafood stock, or even a chicken stock would be okay, stock or broth, and you're just going to pair this with those same things, like a seafood, shrimp would be amazing, mussels, or chicken, or if you're going to stay with mild vegetables, saffron's the way to go. But don't waste it if you're just going to hide it with other flavors. Oh, it does tell me how long. I didn't realize that. We're at 20 minutes. 20 minutes of video, not 20 minutes of cooking. Somebody will have to time me for the cooking part. Okay, so I don't want to tell you about the next step until I add the next thing of broth. Bear with me. If you've not seen my other videos, I did a kale and walnut pesto, which I don't think I mentioned in that video, but it's a really great one for summer because it's a no-cook recipe. You can toast the nuts a little bit, but you don't have to. Other than that, it's all in a food processor. You can chop it up. You could use a mortar and pestle, and then you could make wraps out of it. Would be amazing in the summertime, so you don't have to cook anything. Or if you want to quick boil off some noodles, do that earlier in the day and then mix the pesto with it. You can serve it as like a cold pasta salad. And then what did I do after the pesto? After the pesto. What did I do next? What did I make after pesto? Timmy, do you remember? It was just 2 weeks ago. He said, nope. I didn't have my mind on all the other things that would come to me, you guys. Oh, I made gnocchi. That's what I made. That's a fun one. Get the young people in your life involved in the gnocchi one. Okay, it's to the point where I can add another. Really, when you can, I wish I could just pick up the camera, because once I pick this up, when you can actually see the bubbles in the middle because it's starting to dry out, I think that's a good indication of when you can add another ladle full. And you'll notice I have not salted this at all. That's for reasons. It depends on how salty your stock is, your broth is. I'm going to be adding cheese in a little bit. So that's going to add some salt. At the very end, I'm going to hit it with some lemon zest. So if you're trying to watch your sodium, keep the salt out of it, and then we can hit it with really great flavor at the end that'll touch your tongue first and make your brain happy, and you don't even have to bother with the salt or with any additional salt. And if food is cooked properly, It does not need to be salted at the end. If it's cooked and seasoned properly, it doesn't need to be salted at the end. If you are trying to avoid excess sodium or whatever for health reasons, you can omit the salt. And at the very end, before you eat, that's when you'll sprinkle it on there. And it tricks your brain thinking, oh, there's my salt. Now my brain's happy. But there isn't that much in there. It's just on the top level. It's looking good. I'm going to pull a grain out just to see how it's coming along. Oh, it's almost ready. Yum, yum. A little bit crunchy in the middle still. That's good. I bet you one more after this, and then we should be good. So let's tell you kind of what I'm serving with today. We're going to be doing Parmesan cheese, peas. I use frozen peas in the wintertime, and a little bit of lemon on the top, lemon zest. And then part of my family really likes beets. I'll show you how I process the beets real quick. So I'm going to be doing roasted beets and then the beet greens as well. If you had beets as a child and as an adult, you're like, I don't like beets. Try them again, please. A lot of people don't like beets out of a can. Either they taste tinny or they're pickled, and that turns a lot of people off. But freshly roasted beets are a whole different baby. They're so delicious. They're so sweet. My husband will argue because he still doesn't like them, that they're not delicious, but that's okay. We're all a little bit different. Sorry, my phone's telling me things. They do taste very earthy. So if that's not your jam, maybe you still won't like them, but try them again. So what I do is I buy the beets with the stems and the leaves still on them. Beautiful. This is what the leaves and the stems look like, right? And then the beet grows down here. I cut the beet off, nip off the end. I set it on in tin foil. Okay, drizzle with olive oil, and then I wrap it up like this, close it up, put it on a sheet pan just in case it leaks. In the oven, 400 degrees for probably 20-ish minutes. It depends on the size of your beet. This guy was kind of small, so I think he only took maybe 20 minutes. I had bigger ones that are going to be 30 minutes. There's huge ones in the late fall or late summer, early fall that can take a lot longer. But I left the skin on. Okay, so now I need to peel that skin off. This is where we're going to get messy. Beets will stain everything, so be careful. Wear black. Don't use your best kitchen towels. Just like I peeled, what did I peel the other day for you guys? I don't know. I need to have a better memory. The potatoes when I made the gnocchi. So I'm real big on not wasting anything. I like to use every bit of everything. So I don't want to take a knife and hack away at the skin and then lose half the beet. So because it's nice and soft, you can literally, a little bit closer, just scrape away the skin on the outside. Okay. I think you can see that. It's hard. I'm sorry. Black shirt, dark beet. Anyways, that's how I cook my beets. You can eat them hot. You can eat them cold. Use this in a salad, a Greek salad, instead of the canned kind. They're delicious. My daughter likes to mix them just with some feta for a little snacky snack. I think one of my boys likes them. Not my husband. So I'm going to chop these up, and they're actually going to be sprinkled on top of the risotto at the end. It's going to be beautiful. Okay, let's give this a stir. Oh yeah, that's ready. Ready for some more. Cool. So this is also going to be served with the beet greens. Beet greens are fantastic. I think it's a green that maybe not too many people are familiar with. They're very mild. They have the texture of a collard green. but they're not, sometimes collard greens or kale can be bitter. They're not bitter. They're sweet, similarly to the beet. They have like a natural salty flavor to them. And they do have a texture like a thick spinach or like a softer collard green. You don't have to cook them down as much as you do collards or kale. So all I did, a little bit of olive oil in a saute pan, pile them on here, and I just turned them until they started to wilt down. They're not completely annihilated. They still have this beautiful green color with some of the really gorgeous, vibrant Bordeaux, burgundy red stems. So these will be served along with the risotto as well. Tons of vitamins. I won't get into all of it. Try beet greens. You can eat them raw too. The smaller ones, little baby beets, or the inner leaves, they're super, super tender. You'll see these actually in some spring mixes sometimes. If that looks familiar to you. Super good. Super good for you. Eat the beets. Try them again. On my fingers. We're getting close. Where are we at? We're at 30 minutes. Whoa, that was a long video. Thanks for sticking around. I didn't do any magic of television. Ta-da, finished risotto. I just prepped some of the stuff. Okay, I'm going to give it a taste again. Okay. Once this scoop absorbs and it starts to turn creamy, that's all we need. I'm not even going to add any more. So I bet you I added, it was 1 cup of risotto. I probably added about 3.5-ish cups of liquid. So I have some left over. I'll let this cool down and I can put it in the fridge and use it later. Cool. Okay, this would be a good time to add in any vegetable that you might be doing because you want it to warm back through. So if you sauteed up some mushrooms before, or you, roasted some squash or whatever, this is the point. These are frozen peas, so I do want them to warm up in here. This is probably about, that's a good cup. Okay. Because they're frozen, I added them a little bit earlier so that they would heat through. It's going to seize up the rice a tiny bit, but it'll melt back down. In the summertime, you could do fresh peas in here, and just the residual heat from the liquid and the rice will definitely cook those through enough to be nice and edible. We'll kick up the heat a tiny bit. I'll cut up the beet while that's working. I'll show off my pretty knife real quick too. My husband made for me for Christmas. Isn't that gorgeous? The delay on the screen trips me up every time, guys. All right. I'll cut it up just so that you can see how I'm going to plate in a little bit. So I am not serving this with any type of meat or animal protein. So I will be doing a salad to go along with this. So this is our main dish. And then I'll do a side salad, some greens, some cucumber. And then I'm going to do walnuts to give us some protein. A little homemade vinaigrette. All right, this has soaked up all the liquid. So at this point, we will add in This is like the restaurant trick, a pat of butter. More fat is better when it comes to the difference between restaurant and home cooking. Sometimes you can't make it quite taste like a dish you had at the restaurant. It's because they use a lot of fat and a lot of salt. So if you want that beautiful creaminess, you're going to add in that butter at the end. You could keep it vegan and use a coconut oil or your vegan butter substitute. If you wanted that cheese flavor to keep it vegan or dairy-free, you could use your nutritional yeast. Real quick, I'll go on my quick rant of freshly grated cheese. It's important to buy the whole shebang, shred it up yourself. Makes a world of difference of flavor. Doesn't have any of the added anything added to it to keep it fresh. The anti-caking agents, which keeps it from pre-shredded cheese from melting. Beautiful. So that was about a cup of cheese, and then we always want more cheese on the at the end too. All right, that was it. I'm gonna plate it up and show you guys. That thing's hot. So this is the whole pot. Okay. So this will be enough food for a meal for there's 4 of us at the house. Our oldest son doesn't live at home anymore. He's a big boy. He got his own apartment. Sorry. So there's 4 of us. This will be enough for entree size for 4 of us, and I bet you there'll be some left over for someone to take for lunch. Let's see how beautifully creamy. Okay. Creamy and cheesy and gorgeous. I'm going to take this off because it's an electric skillet and it stays hot, unlike my gas stove. Okay. Let's take our beet greens right on top. This isn't a full portion. I'm just showing you an example portion. Okay. And I'm using my fingers. We'll take our gorgeous beets. Oh yeah. Try the beets. They're delicious. Okay. Set this down right here. Hit it with some more cheese. And then instead of adding more salt, that cheese is going to give us that flavor, and then some lemon zest. Perfect and beautiful. Can you see it? Yes. You see the little bit of a yellow color that came from our saffron. The flavor is going to be amazing. Oh, and cracked pepper. You gotta have cracked pepper. There we go. Risotto. Okay, it was a 37-minute video. Maybe 25 minutes of cooking time, I think. But that was a lot of, it could be shorter than that. I did some extra things that you don't have to do. Yeah, so there's risotto. Try it. It's delicious. Some of the ingredients are a little bit pricier, but they last a long time. And you don't eat it every single day or every single week. So yeah, there's risotto. And that is the end of my KDL series for this time around. Hopefully I get to do it again. I had a lot of fun. I learned as I went. Filming from home was interesting. I generally do in-person classes in the summertime with, I've done it all the way from little tiny guys with grandparents or parents or guardians, all the way up to the teenagers. Hopefully this summer we get to do that again. That's always a really good time. But yeah, the video series was fun too. So thank you for watching, and thank you for everybody at KDL for believing in me and asking me to do this. I hope everybody tries all of the things that I made, and I hope you enjoy it. And get in the kitchen, get your family in the kitchen and the kids in the kitchen. Cook with your partner, have fun. Food is medicine.
and it's not that hard to make. Okay, have a great night, and thanks again. Bye.
Thank you so much, Mandy Thompson. I have learned a lot from you these last 4 weeks of cooking. And thank you to all you viewers out there who have watched live and who are watching this taped, and for bearing with me and my technical difficulties. And please continue to watch Kent District Library's streaming programs. Have a great night.